It is Thursday, January 14. Welcome to CGN News. The U.S. House of Representatives has impeached President Donald Trump for, quote, incitement of insurrection at last week's Capitol riot. 10 Republicans sided with Democrats to impeach the president by 232 to 197. He's the first president in U.S. history to be impeached twice or charged with crimes by Congress. Trump, a Republican, will now face a trial in the Senate where, if convicted, he could face being barred from ever holding office again. But he will not have to quit the White House before his term ends in 1 week because the Senate will not reconvene in time. Trump leaves office on January 20 following his election defeat last November to Democrat Joe Biden. The National Guard is prepared for the possibility of those plotting attacks on the U.S. Capitol during Joe Biden's inauguration will be using improvised explosive devices and heavily armed. They were briefed on the improvised explosive device IED threats after pipe bombs were uncovered in the aftermath of last week's deadly siege on the U.S. Capitol, sources told Politico. A total of 20,000 National Guardsmen have been authorized to descend on Washington and are cleared to carry handguns and rifles. Hundreds were spotted Wednesday cradling their rifles and riot gear as they slept on the stone floor of the Capitol building. It is believed to be the first time troops have set up camp in the Capitol since the Civil War. Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles, and Director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, are this year's recipients of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Award. The announcement was made Wednesday by Reverend Al Sharpton, founder of the U.S. National Action Network. The awards will be conferred on Sir Hilary and Dr. Fauci at the annual breakfast event on Martin Luther King Day next Monday in Washington, D.C. This is the 30th anniversary for the awards by which the work and legacy of Dr. King are celebrated. Sir Hilary is being recognized for his global advocacy, academic scholarship, and intellectual leadership in support of social justice and institutional equity, a release said. Documenting their concern that regional states may not have equal access to COVID-19 vaccines, CARICOM has called for a global summit to address the matter in a statement issued on Wednesday. CARICOM said it was, quote, deeply concerned at the current prospect of inequitable access to vaccines, especially for frontline workers and vulnerable populations, end quote. CARICOM called for a global summit to discuss equitable access and distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines. A police raid on the Trinidad Express newspaper in March last year has been deemed unconstitutional by the court. Justice Frank Prasad said Wednesday that the search warrants obtained by the police in search of information which could lead them to a journalist's source infringed on the media house's right to freedom of the press. Prasad ordered compensation to the media house for the breach of its rights, the CMC reports. One Caribbean Media Group Limited had filed a constitutional claim against the Attorney General, the Commissioner of Police, and Superintendent Wendell Lucas, who led the raid on March 11, 2020. The raid came after the Trinidad Express published an investigative piece on ACP Erwin Hackshaw's activity at 3 local banks being flagged. The government of the Philippines has included Jamaica on a travel restriction list due to the presence of the new COVID-19 variant. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque announced on Tuesday that travelers from Jamaica, Pakistan, Luxembourg, and Oman will not be allowed to enter the Philippines during the period of restriction. Filipinos from these countries will be allowed to return home, but will need to complete the 14-day quarantine regardless of a negative COVID-19 test result. Following reports of new COVID-19 variants, the Philippines suspended all flights from the UK on December 24 and later expanded the list. Bermuda Premier David Burt and opposition leader Cole Simmons were among the first residents to receive the COVID-19 vaccine on Monday. They both urged the population to reject vaccine hesitancy and get vaccinated. Bird said resistance to getting the injection was down to historic and legacy problems. He added that there was an incredible amount of misinformation out there about the vaccine and said he's fully confident that it is safe and effective. The British government donated more than 9,500 doses of the Pfizer vaccine to Bermuda. Ugandan authorities appeared to cut off internet access in the country Wednesday night on the eve of the presidential election, while a lawyer for leading opposition candidate Bobi Wine says all contact has been lost with him. The US-based counsel for Wine, Bruce Affron, told reporters that the candidate is now in his compound with his wife and a single staff member who is unarmed. Affron said he feared Wine, a popular young singer and lawmaker, will once again be arrested, and he warned of protests if President Yoweri Museveni is declared the winner of today's vote because of fraud. Wine, 38, has captured the imagination of many at home and abroad in his generational clash with the 76-year-old Museveni, who has rebuffed calls for his retirement after 34 years in power. Twitter boss Jack Dorsey says banning U.S. President Donald Trump was the right thing to do. However, he expressed sadness at what he described as the extraordinary and untenable circumstances surrounding Trump's permanent suspension, according to reports by the BBC. Dorsey also said the ban was in part a failure of Twitter's, which hadn't done enough to foster healthy conversation across its platforms. Twitter has been praised and criticized for freezing Trump's account. German leader Angela Merkel and Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, neither a Trump ally, spoke out against the tech titan's move. And finally, the European Union's Food Safety Agency says worms are safe to eat. The Parma-based agency published a scientific opinion Wednesday on the safety of dried yellow mealworms and gave them the thumbs up. Researchers said the worms, either eaten whole or in powdered form, are a protein-rich snack or ingredient for other foods. Allergic reactions may occur, especially depending on the type of feed given to the bugs, known officially as Tenebrio molitor larvae. But overall, the panel concludes that the novel food is safe under the proposed uses and use levels. That's it for CGN News. Join us on Saturday, January 16 at 6 p.m. for the CGN presentation of our 2020 Year in Review on IRIJamRadio.com and IRIJam 360. Thanks for watching.